The classroom buzzed with chatter as students settled into their seats. But the moment Amamira, the new transfer student, walked through the door, the energy shifted. Her quiet confidence was impossible to miss. Chin lifted, posture straight, every step measured. While most of the students looked at her with curiosity, one boy in the back leaned back in his chair with a smirk that spelled trouble. That boy was Chase, the school's self-proclaimed alpha. He had made a reputation out of pushing people around, always needing to remind others that he ran things. And to him, Amamira was a new target, a chance to show off his dominance. He scraped his chair loudly across the floor and stood, blocking her path. "Wrong classroom," he drawled. "We don't take strays here." Amamira met his gaze, unflinching. "My schedule says otherwise," she replied evenly, moving toward an empty seat. But Chase wasn't ready to let her slip by. He grabbed her bag, tugging hard. "Didn't you hear me? I said, get out." His tone was sharp, filled with the arrogance of someone too used to getting his way. The room fell silent. Students exchanged uneasy glances. Some worried, some entertained. Everyone knew Chase was a bully, but no one had ever dared to push back. Everyone except Amamira. She pulled her bag free and took a step closer. "I don't repeat myself," she said, her voice low but steady. Chase's smirk widened, mistaking her calm for weakness. In a sudden motion, he reached out and grabbed her arm, trying to drag her toward the door. That was his mistake. Before anyone could blink, Amamira shifted her weight, twisted her wrist free, and flipped Chase clean over her shoulder. He hit the floor with a thud that rattled desks, gasping as the air left his lungs. For a moment, the entire room froze. Mouths hung open, eyes wide. No one had ever seen Chase on the ground like that. Then the whispers began, spreading like wildfire. "Did she just throw him? No way. Did you see that?" Amamira adjusted her sleeve calmly, as though nothing out of the ordinary had happened. "Next time," she said firmly, looking down at Chase, "think twice before you put your hands on someone." Chase scrambled up, his face flushed with a mix of shock and fury. But before he could lunge again, the teacher stormed into the room, drawn by the commotion. "What on earth is going on here?" she demanded. Students stammered, but the truth was written all over their faces. Chase had been put in his place, and by the new girl no less. Amamira sat down quietly, her expression unreadable, while Chase sulked in the corner. For the first time in his reign of intimidation, his power had been shattered in front of everyone. And though Amamira hadn't come looking for trouble, she had just sent a message the entire school would remember. She was not someone to be pushed around. The room lingered in stunned silence for a few seconds before the whispers erupted into scattered applause. A couple of students even clapped openly, thrilled to see Chase, who had tormented so many of them, finally get a taste of his own medicine. Amamira didn't bask in the reaction. She simply pulled out her notebook and sat calmly, as though nothing had happened. Chase, however, was far from calm. Red-faced and humiliated, he shoved his chair violently against the wall and stood, his fists clenched. "You think you're tough?" he spat. "You're dead after this." Before he could charge again, the classroom door burst open. Two security guards, alerted by the noise, rushed inside. They immediately spotted Chase, who still looked ready to fight, and Amamira sitting quietly at her desk. "What's going on here?" one guard barked. The teacher, clearly rattled, pointed at Chase. "He started it. He tried to drag her out of the room." Several students nodded quickly, speaking up for the first time against the bully. "Yeah, she just defended herself," one girl insisted. The guards exchanged a knowing glance. Chase was well known in the office. This wasn't his first outburst. They moved swiftly, taking him by the arms despite his protests. "This isn't over," he shouted over his shoulder, but his voice cracked under the weight of his humiliation. For the first time, his threats sounded empty. As Chase was dragged out, a wave of relief spread across the classroom. The tension lifted, and students began whispering to Amamira, some smiling, others giving her approving nods. She offered a small, polite smile back but stayed composed. She hadn't come to impress anyone. She had simply refused to be disrespected. Moments later, the intercom buzzed, and Amamira's name was called to report to the principal's office. She rose quietly, gathering her bag, her posture as graceful as it had been when she walked in that morning. The walk to the office was quiet but filled with curious stares. Students peered out of classrooms, whispers trailing after her. Some were curious, some impressed, and a few, those who had suffered under Chase's bullying, looked at her with something closer to admiration. When she entered the principal's office, Principal Harris, a stern but fair man, sat waiting. He gestured for her to sit. "Miss Amamira," he began, adjusting his glasses. "I've already spoken with security and several students. They all confirm that you were provoked and that you acted in self-defense." Amamira nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir. I had no intention of fighting. I only wanted him to stop." The principal studied her for a long moment before a small smile tugged at his lips. "I believe you. And, to be honest, it's refreshing to see someone stand up to Chase. He's been a problem here for far too long." He leaned back in his chair, his tone softening. "You've made quite an impression today, Miss Amamira. Just be careful. Not everyone takes well to being embarrassed, especially someone like Chase." Amamira inclined her head, calm as ever. Understood. What she didn't know, however, was that Chase wasn't her only problem. His cousin Belle, quiet, calculating, and far more dangerous than her loudmouthed relative, had already set her sights on the new girl. News of the classroom showdown spread through the school like wildfire. By lunchtime, almost everyone knew the new girl had flipped Chase to the floor. Some students laughed about it, others retold the story with exaggerated flair, but one person didn't find it amusing at all. Belle, Chase's cousin. Unlike Chase, Belle wasn't loud or reckless. She was strategic, the type who preferred manipulation over fists. Watching her cousin get embarrassed in front of the entire class infuriated her. But more than that, it threatened the social order she had worked hard to control. To Belle, Amamira wasn't just another new student. She was a rival. Within days, Belle hatched a plan. With the help of a couple of her friends, she edited together a video that twisted the truth. The footage made it look like Amamira had attacked Chase unprovoked, cutting out the part where he had grabbed her first. Then, with a few taps, Belle spread it across group chats and social media pages connected to the school. The reaction was immediate. Whispers returned, but this time with suspicion. Some students who had once applauded Amamira now glanced at her with doubt, wondering if she was as dangerous as the video suggested. Amamira noticed the shift but refused to panic. She knew the truth, and she trusted it would come out. Still, the weight of being misjudged pressed against her calm exterior. The tension came to a head when the principal announced a school assembly. Students crowded into the auditorium, buzzing with speculation. At the front sat Amamira, Chase, Belle, and several teachers. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Principal Harris took the stage, his voice firm. "It has come to my attention that a video has been circulating, painting an incomplete picture of an incident that occurred earlier this week. Today, we're going to set the record straight." The lights dimmed as the screen flickered to life. To the shock of many, the full, unedited security footage played. Not Belle's version, but the truth. It showed Chase grabbing Amamira's arm, attempting to drag her from the classroom, and Amamira defending herself with precision and restraint. Gasps echoed across the room. Whispers turned into outright chatter. The truth was undeniable. When the lights came back up, the principal's gaze swept across the crowd. As you can see, Amamira acted in self-defense. She did not attack without cause. And as for the doctored video, his eyes shifted toward Belle, whose smug expression had vanished. There will be consequences for those who attempted to spread falsehoods. Applause erupted, louder and prouder than before. Students who had doubted Amamira now looked at her with respect once more. Some even cheered, grateful that someone had finally stood up to the toxic reign of Chase and Belle. Amamira remained composed, though a small smile touched her lips. She hadn't needed to argue or defend herself. The truth had spoken for her. But as she left the stage, Belle's icy glare followed her. The fight wasn't over. If anything, Belle was more determined than ever to bring her down. The assembly may have cleared Amamira's name, but it didn't erase Belle's bitterness. Over the next few days, Belle's glare followed. Amamira in every hallway. She whispered to her friends, plotting quietly, her pride wounded and her cousin's reputation in ruins. Belle had built her image on control, and losing it to the new girl was something she simply couldn't accept. One afternoon, as the last bell rang, Amamira was gathering her books when Belle made her move. She cornered Amamira near the lockers, her friends forming a half-circle around them to block anyone from stepping in. "You think you've won, don't you?" Belle sneered, her voice dripping with venom. "Humiliating my cousin, making me look like a liar in front of the whole school. You don't belong here." Amamira closed her locker calmly, her expression steady. "I didn't come here to fight you, Belle. I came here to learn. You should try it sometime." The jab stung, and Belle's composure cracked. She lunged forward, shoving Amamira hard against the lockers. The sound echoed down the hall, drawing startled gasps from nearby students. But Amamira didn't retaliate with rage. She stepped aside quickly, letting Belle stumble with her own force. "Violence isn't strength," Amamira said firmly. "It's desperation." Teachers rushed in at the commotion. They found Belle red-faced, fists clenched, and Amamira standing poised and calm. Witnesses didn't hesitate to speak up this time. "Belle started it," one student shouted. "She shoved Amamira." The staff wasted no time. Belle was escorted straight to the principal's office, her protests falling flat against the flood of testimony. Within the hour, she was issued a suspension for harassment and misconduct. For Amamira, it was a turning point. The whispers that once followed her had transformed into nods of respect. Students she had never spoken to began greeting her in the halls. A group even slipped a folded note into her locker with a simple message: "Thank you for standing up. People like Chase and Belle don't scare us anymore because of you." Reading the note, Amamira allowed herself a rare smile. She hadn't planned to become a symbol of defiance or courage. She had only wanted to be treated with fairness. But sometimes, standing your ground created ripples bigger than you could ever expect. By the end of the week, Chase kept his head down, Belle was off campus, and the school felt different, lighter, freer. Students who had once stayed silent now spoke out more boldly. And as Amamira walked through the halls, head held high, she realized something important. Belonging wasn't about being accepted immediately. It was about refusing to shrink when challenged, about staying true to yourself until the world had no choice but to see you for who you really were. That was her quiet victory.